What would you order if you knew it was your last meal on Earth? For death row inmates, we explore the most shocking last meals, ranging from just a single olive to grand feasts, where each choice reveals the story and personality of the criminal. Victor Harry Feger, a single olive with the pit intact. In 1963, Victor Harry Feger kidnapped and murdered a doctor, luring him with a fake emergency call. After committing the murder, he abandoned the body in a remote field in Iowa. Feger was captured thanks to a phone call that linked him to the victim, tried, and sentenced to hanging. On the night before his death, Feger did not request a lavish meal or an extravagant dish. He surprised the prison staff by asking for just one olive with the pit intact. After his execution, the pit was found in his pocket, sparking theories about its meaning. Some believe he hoped an olive tree would grow from his grave, symbolizing peace and redemption. This final choice, loaded with symbolism, left an enduring mystery. Lawrence Russell Brewer, breaded steaks, triple bacon cheeseburger, fajitas, pizza, ice cream, and more. In 1998, Lawrence Russell Brewer participated in the brutal murder of James Byrd Jr., a racially motivated crime that shocked the nation. Byrd was chained and dragged behind a truck for several miles until he died. This heinous act led to Brewer's conviction and death sentence. The night before his execution, Brewer made an impressive and ostentatious request: breaded steaks with gravy, a triple bacon cheeseburger, fajitas, a meat lover's pizza, a pound of barbecue, ice cream, and 3 root beers. However, in a final act of defiance, Brewer refused to eat when the meal arrived, stating he wasn't hungry. This gesture caused such outrage that Texas authorities banned custom last meals for death row inmates. Brewer's choice was a provocative act that left a mark on the prison system and public memory. John Wayne Gacy, KFC chicken, fried shrimp, French fries, and strawberries. John Wayne Gacy, known as the Killer Clown, was responsible for the torture and murder of 33 young men between 1972 and 1978. Gacy used his image as a model citizen and his role as Pogo the Clown at community events to lure his victims, most of whom were buried in the crawl space beneath his house. He was arrested and sentenced to death after a trial that exposed the horrific details of his crimes. In his final moments, Gacy chose a meal that echoed his past: a bucket of KFC chicken, fried shrimp, French fries, and strawberries. Before his arrest, he had managed several KFC franchises, and his final choice reflected an attempt to return to an apparently normal life before his dark nature was revealed. This meal, marked by irony, left a lasting impression as a final reminder of his duality: a man who could hide behind a mask of normalcy while committing monstrous acts. Timothy McVeigh, 2 pints of mint chocolate chip ice cream. Timothy McVeigh was the perpetrator of the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, a domestic terrorist act that resulted in the deaths of 168 people, including 19 children. This truck bombing was the deadliest attack in U.S. history before September 11, 2001. McVeigh was captured, tried, and sentenced to death for his heinous crime. For his last meal, McVeigh chose something surprisingly simple: 2 pints of mint chocolate chip ice cream. The lack of luxury in his choice contrasted sharply with the magnitude of his crime. Some interpreted this as a gesture of cold indifference to the lives he took, while others saw it as a final attempt to hold on to a moment of innocence before facing execution. This final choice, stark and unsettling, left a haunting image that endures in public memory. Aileen Wuornos, a cup of black coffee. Aileen Wuornos, considered the first modern female serial killer in the United States, killed 7 men between 1989 and 1990. Wuornos, who had a life marked by abuse and poverty, claimed she killed in self-defense after being attacked while working as a prostitute. She was arrested in 1991, confessed to the murders, and was sentenced to death. For her last meal, Wuornos rejected elaborate dishes and requested a simple cup of black coffee. This choice reflected the austerity of her life and her defiant character to the end. Her final words, "I am sailing with the rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th, added a touch of mystery to her farewell. Wuornos's choice and her last message are still debated. seen as an act of defiance or a call for redemption. Philip Workman, a vegetarian pizza donated to a homeless person. Philip Workman was convicted of the murder of a police officer during a failed robbery in 1981. Although he always maintained that the fatal shot was not his, the evidence against him led to his death sentence. Workman did not ask for a meal for himself, but instead requested that a vegetarian pizza be donated to a homeless person. Prison authorities denied his request, but his act of compassion moved the community. On the day of his execution, hundreds of people sent pizzas to shelters in his honor. This final gesture left an impression of humanity and generosity, showing that even in his final moments, Workman sought to do something positive, contrasting with the severity of his crime. Thomas J. Grasso, steamed clams, ribs, a double cheeseburger, SpaghettiOs, and strawberry milkshakes. Grasso was convicted of murdering two elderly people in separate incidents, motivated by the theft of their savings and possessions. His crimes were particularly cruel, and he was eventually arrested and sentenced to death. Grasso's last meal was a feast that included steamed clams, ribs, and a double cheeseburger, but what stood out the most was his insistence on receiving SpaghettiOs. When they served him spaghetti and meatballs instead, his final words were, "I did not get my SpaghettiOs. I want the press to know this." This statement, loaded with irony and frustration, etched his farewell into history as an example of how the absurd and the tragic can intertwine in final moments. James Edward Smith, a handful of dirt. Smith was convicted of killing a man during a failed robbery in 1983. Driven by desperation, the crime led to his swift arrest, and the evidence against him resulted in a death sentence. Smith's request for a handful of Recunda soil, associated with voodoo rituals, the prison did not fulfill his request, offering him yogurt instead. Smith's final choice showed how beliefs in rituals and mysticism can influence a person's thoughts even in their last moments. Ronnie Lee Gardner, steak, lobster tail, apple pie with ice cream, and a 7-Up while watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Gardner was convicted of murdering an attorney during an attempted escape from court in 1985. Gardner was captured, sentenced to death. Gardner didn't just request a lavish meal. He asked to watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy while eating. The authorities granted his request, allowing him to extend his final hours with an over 11-hour movie marathon. The last meals of death row inmates are more than just food. They are final declarations revealing remorse or defiance. Which story impacted you the most? Leave it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more intriguing and surprising stories. And remember, the truth is always beyond what we can see.